15 years ago, a move from America to Japan created an immediate and persistent feeling that something was noticeably different about everyone around. It took time to identify exactly what it was, but eventually the observation became impossible to ignore any longer. Nobody was overweight. Since 1960, the obesity rate in America has climbed from 12% to over 40% today, representing one of the most dramatic public health shifts in modern history. Japan's obesity rate sits at just 4.5%, meaning America is obese at nearly 10 times the rate of Japan, consistently. The average American body would be considered overweight by Japanese population standards, and this gap has persisted for decades without narrowing meaningfully. The obvious question is why, and the obvious answers that most people immediately suggest turn out to be completely wrong upon examination. Maybe it is green tea, maybe it is genetics. Maybe Japanese people simply exercise more or have some cultural discipline that Americans lack entirely. Smoking rates in Japan are actually higher, with 25% of Japanese men smoking compared to just 13% of Americans. Gym membership rates in Japan are dramatically lower, with only 3.3% of people holding memberships compared to 21% in America. The explanation is that the food environment itself is fundamentally different in specific, measurable ways. When you simply eat whatever looks good and is conveniently available in Japan, you lose weight. The environment does the work rather than requiring constant willpower. The first key difference is what convenient food actually looks like in each country when you are hungry and need something quickly. America has 15 times more fast food establishments per person than Japan, meaning the convenient default option for most Americans is almost always processed and calorie-dense. Japan has over 4,000 rice bowl establishments, where for approximately $4 you can get a traditional breakfast of rice, fermented soybeans, roasted fish, and miso soup. Japanese convenience stores, called konbinis, are genuinely different from anything available in Western countries, and this difference is more significant than most people initially realize. For approximately $9 at a Japanese convenience store, you can get fish simmered in miso, ramen, eggs, a rice ball, roasted chicken, a salad, and green tea. The pre-prepared food sections include fish with mushrooms, steamed chicken with pickled vegetables, shrimp and broccoli combinations, and roasted fish options alongside the usual snacks. Even the less healthy konbini options are significantly better nutritionally than the chips, candy, processed foods, and heat lamp fried items found in American convenience stores. The important structural insight here is that convenience does not have to mean unhealthy, but in America, the two have become almost synonymous for most people. Japan has approximately 10 times more convenience stores per square kilometer than America, which means genuinely decent food is always close by for everyone. The standard for food across Japan is simply higher, meaning even the lowest tier quick food options are significantly better than their American equivalents. The second key difference is sugar consumption, and this gap between the two countries is dramatically larger than most people would estimate before seeing the data. The average American consumes 33.7 kilograms of sugar per year, while the average Japanese person consumes just 17.7 kilograms annually. Americans eat nearly double the sugar of Japanese people every single year, and this difference compounds across decades of eating patterns throughout a lifetime. Even sweets and desserts in Japan are noticeably less sweet than their American counterparts, and this is not just a subjective cultural preference, but a measurable formulation difference. After living in Japan for over a decade, American sweets now taste overwhelmingly sweet, while Japanese sweets that initially seemed insufficient now taste perfectly satisfying. A 2016 study explains exactly why this palate shift happens, and the finding is genuinely encouraging for anyone trying to reduce their sugar intake permanently. After just 2 months of reducing simple sugar intake by 40%, participants began rating sweet foods as significantly sweeter by as much as 40% than before. This means sugar preference is adaptive, not fixed. The more sugar you eat, the more you need to feel satisfied, and the reverse is equally true. Drink sizes in Japan also reflect this dramatically, with the Japanese McDonald's large being approximately the same size as the American small for the same menu item. The American large is roughly twice the size of the Japanese large, and the concept of a convenience store big gulp-sized soda simply does not exist here. Half-sized drinks are commonly marketed in Japan, with the actual selling point being that the size is small enough to finish comfortably without waste. The average Japanese person drinks 30 liters of soda per year, while the average American drinks 154 liters, which is more than 5 times as much. Japanese vending machines, which are more numerous per person than anywhere else on Earth, offer multiple types of unsweetened tea, water, and black coffee alongside sweet options.
The cultural default drink at restaurants in Japan is water or tea, and survey responses suggest fewer than 10% of restaurant diners choose soda with their meals. The third key difference is the school lunch system, which creates food preferences and portion expectations during childhood that carry into adult eating habits for life. In America, schools turned to private for-profit companies to provide student lunches in 1970, and the menus shifted accordingly toward processed, convenient, and cost-reduced options. American school lunch menus commonly feature processed foods with minimal nutritional planning and limited fresh ingredients, which children then grow up considering normal, everyday food. Japanese school lunches are planned by a designated nutritionist for each school and prepared entirely from scratch every single day without exception throughout the academic year. A typical Japanese school lunch includes rice, fish or meat, vegetables, and pickled items, providing balanced nutrition that educates the palate toward whole foods from early childhood. Children who grow up eating well-planned, nutritious lunches develop taste preferences and portion expectations that follow them through adolescence and into adult life consistently. Getting genuine nutrition education through the actual experience of eating well-prepared food every day is far more effective than any classroom lesson about nutrition could ever be.
The fourth key difference is portion sizes, and Japan has 2 specific cultural mechanisms that keep portions consistently smaller than anything found in American food culture. The first is the concept of Mottainai, which means wasteful, and it creates a cultural aversion to ordering or serving more food than can reasonably be finished in one sitting. Japanese children who cannot finish their school lunch are expected to remain at the table until they do, which builds both appreciation for appropriate portions and aversion to excess from an early age. Leaving food unfinished at a restaurant is considered poor manners, meaning restaurants serve portions that most people can actually finish, rather than oversized amounts meant to signal value. Taking leftover food home in a container is also not a common practice in Japan the way it is in America, meaning restaurant portion norms are calibrated to single-sitting consumption. Most packaged snacks in Japan are sized for comfortable single-occasion consumption without creating the feeling of needing to eat past satisfaction to avoid wasting an open package. In America, the opposite messaging prevails, with restaurants actively marketing enormous portions as value and competitive advantage, which trains customers to associate quantity with quality consistently.
The fifth key difference is variety, and it is perhaps the most underappreciated structural factor in explaining why eating healthfully in Japan requires so little deliberate effort or planning. When healthy food is varied, interesting, and widely available, it becomes the effortless default choice rather than the disciplined, deliberate choice it often feels like in American food culture. Japanese pub culture, known as izakaya, offers an example of this, even in environments primarily associated with drinking alcohol rather than healthy eating specifically. There are approximately 7,500 izakayas in Japan, which is more establishments than the total number of McDonald's and Burger King locations combined across the country. These establishments serve grilled fish, vegetables, small shared plates, and fermented foods alongside drinks, meaning even social occasions organized around alcohol come with genuinely nutritious food options. The variety of reasonably priced healthy options throughout Japanese food culture means people never feel trapped eating the same few boring healthy meals repeatedly until they inevitably give up. One additional structural difference worth noting is seed oil consumption, with Japanese people consuming approximately half the seed oils that Americans consume in their daily diets.
Seed oils become increasingly unstable when heated, with the fragile fat molecules breaking down during cooking in ways that more heat-stable saturated fats do not experience. Traditional Japanese cooking uses less seed oil overall and relies more heavily on whole food fats from fish, eggs, and naturally occurring animal sources throughout the cuisine. The most honest summary of why Japan escaped the obesity crisis while America did not comes down to one fundamental insight about human behavior and willpower. When the food environment makes healthy eating the path of least resistance, most people eat healthily without requiring extraordinary discipline, motivation, or nutritional knowledge consistently. When the food environment makes processed, calorie-dense food the easiest, cheapest, and most convenient option available, most people eat that way regardless of their intentions or health knowledge. Japan did not solve obesity by creating a population of unusually disciplined people with exceptional willpower and sophisticated nutritional understanding applied consistently every single day. Japan maintained reasonable population weight by creating a food environment where the default, convenient, affordable, and socially normal choice happens to be reasonably nutritious most of the time. The lesson for anyone who has struggled with weight in an environment designed around processed food is that your willpower is not the problem, and never was.
The environment is the problem, and understanding that distinction is the first genuinely useful step toward changing the outcomes that environment has been producing for you.